Hey fellow ranchers, it's me, Mario. I'm a long-time Great Western Trail player, and since there's an online fan-made implementation, I was able to play online quite a bit recently. I always consider myself a competitive player, and I've been playing against new players recently, and I thought, why not make a video to help out beginners understanding what Great Western Trail truly is about? Because I think many people think they already know how to play the game well, but they actually don't know how to, let's say, abuse some of the perks of its design. So Grandmaster Trade is a really deep game, but it's even deeper once you discover how to play it at a competitive level. So if you're interested into it, follow me through some steps and we're going to take a look at what is needed to compete, to truly compete against good players in Great Western Trail. I'm going to use this implementation. This is an alpha. It is an alpha version of Great Western Trail. It's going to be widely available on Board Game Arena, I think, in probably a few months, even earlier than that, maybe. And it's beautiful to show you guys how to play the game on this platform. So that's what I'm going to do. The other platform I'm using, which is Board Game Fiesta, it's unofficial. It's really well done, but it's not as graphically pleasing as this one. So I'm just going to use this one. So maybe new players won't be want to run away from my video just by watching the screen. So the first thing I'd like to say is that people normally approach Great Western Trail as a deck building game in which you need to get good cows into your deck and slowly go through the loop until you reach Kansas City and then go for good deliveries and get good points out of them. The main problem in this view is that Great Western Trail isn't about that. Let's take a look at Great Western Trail overall, and you're going to see a loop. And that's what it is. It's a loop builder game. I don't know if you've ever played Loop Hero. It's a quite famous roguelike game. You can find the link in under the video. Just joking. I'm not doing any of this stuff, so I won't get any money from just saying it out loud. But basically, in Loop Hero, you're going to build your own loop, and it's going to be better and better, and your opponents are getting worse and worse. So you have to do that. Here, it's not as clear, but you might see this is a game that is close to the end, and that's what I wanted to show you. And you see, it's full of buildings. This is the first thing you should know if you're a beginner. This game is about building yourself a great route to follow through and to milk for points each and every time. It's not just about delivering cows. So this is the first thing. Less cows, more buildings. Right at the start of the game, the building action is incredibly helpful because you're going to reserve for yourself some good spots and place down some buildings that might or might not be very useful to you. They should. Or you're going to place down building with a hand that are going to tax your opponents. We are going to talk about them later on, but basically playing taxers down is going to be incredibly helpful, and it's something that everybody should do, not just the guy that goes for builders early on. So placing building is the most important action in the game. It's not buying cows, placing down buildings. And the second most important action is getting heads. Like heads is how you're going to build your engine. Heads are workers, are commonly known as workers, and they come in three species: cowboys, engineers, and builders. I mean, you can call them a craft something, I don't know, but I just call them builders and cowboys instead of what they truly are. So if you're not happy with that names, just keep all the parts in which I say those names. You're going to skip the whole video probably, but oh well. So why are heads important? Because they let you specialize. In this game, as in many other Euro games, specializing is good. Specializing means that you're going to get more points for every action that you're going to take, and better returns out of your investment. So you need to specialize in Great Western Trail as in many other games. Let's say there are a few actions you can take at the beginning of the game which are going to be pretty good regardless. Not always good, but they can be good regardless of your overall strategy. The first one is, of course, building something. I've already said it, you need to build something. Often enough, you're going to be taxers, but depending on the board, you might build something else. The second good action to take at the beginning of the game is buying a cow. Um, Buying a value 3 cow, it's pretty costly at the beginning because it costs 6 coins. But if you get one into your deck before the first shuffle, that's going to deliver. So buying a cow is reasonable. It's not something you should do each and every game, which is counterintuitive, right? You're playing Great Western Trail and you won't buy any cow. That's crazy, right? But it is what it is. You should buy one cow every now and then, but not each and every game. And the last thing that you can do is advancing on the rails a bit. Again, there are going to be some games, they're not as common, but there are going to be some games in which you won't move your engine at all and you're still going to be able to win. But most of the time, taking a few steps on the race is going to help you because later on you're going to get coins because you might get station master tiles which are incredibly useful. So taking a few steps on the rails makes sense at the beginning of the game, even if you're not specialized. Like since you're leapfrogging each other on the rails, taking a few steps at the beginning makes sense if you can take more step just for one action. So you can pass those 3 crosses, that's already going to save you quite a few coins during the game. But it's not as important. Again, the only really important thing is building something. Buying a cow and getting a few steps, yeah, it comes naturally most of the time, but if you have to skip those actions, then that's fine. Specialization is the name of the game. Like if you go for cowboys, you're going to get cows for cheap and they're going to be worth way more points. If you specialize on engineers, you're going to get some station master tiles which give you some economical return, but also you'd like to reach the end of the track, which is going to give you heaps of points. And if you go for builders, you're going to build up the perfect loop. You're going to screw the other players over because you will mess with their ideal loops and you have a payoff in the high buildings. We are going to talk about it later on. But as for now, keep in mind, specialize, specialize, specialize. Then Great Western Trail is more like Great Western Run. You need to run in this game. The running concept is debated a bit among competitive players because maybe run isn't the correct term to refer to it, but it's I think it's a good term as any to describe how Great Western Trail looks to beginners when they're playing against expert players. You need to run. You need to use all of the steps that you can all the time, pretty much, to hit only the buildings that you like the most. And then you're going straight up to Kansas City. Why is that true? Again, do you remember that I said that specializing is the way to go in this game? Well, take a look at the neutral buildings. They are not made all the same. There are like 2 buildings that basically give you coin and not much else, which are building F and building D. They are pretty much stops just to gather some coins. You can make something more out of them later on in the game, but they are mainly stops to get coins. This is the step that's most important to everybody at the beginning of the game because it's going to lead you to specialization. And then there are these 4 buildings: the cow market, the building, and the 2 engineer buildings. And they are really good once you specialize. Like they are heads and shoulder above every other building in the game. So you should go and stop there every time that you can. So since Great Master Trail isn't played in a fixed amount of rounds, but it depends on the speed of players, if you run, you have more chances to hit the buildings that are going to give you more points, like the 2 ones for the engineer, the cow market for the cowboys, and the building action for the builders. So it's not that you're running, it's that you're trying to hit those buildings as many times as you can. And to do so, you need to run and go to Kansas City many times. Like on average, there are like 6 deliveries possible to each and every player. But if you're able to run faster than your opponents, you might get 7 deliveries in, which is not important for the deliveries themselves, because as we're going to see, you won't get too many points out of the deliveries. But it's going to be very important because it's going to mean that you can take 7 loops. And again, taking 7 loops means taking many times the cow market action, many times the build action, many times the advanced train action. So running is good because by running you're going to take optimal stops. And that's all that matters in this game. Specializing and taking optimal stops. If you go slower, the other player are going to murder you in points because they are going to get more optimal stops overall, and you're entitled basically the same amount of stops in a game as the other players. So you should try to make the most points out of them in a certain amount of time. Which also leads us to the fact that in Great Western Trail, that's pretty different from other Euro game. It doesn't really make sense to compare final scoring. Like if you got 100 points or more, it's because everybody else is moving at a glacial pace. At competitive level, most games finish around 70 points, I think, for the winner. Uh, Between 70 and 80, I would say that's the average. Sometimes even less than that, because people are going fast. And it doesn't really matter to make a lot of points in general, but it matters to make more points than your opponents. I mean, in every game, you're going to win if you make more points than your opponents, not if you just make a record breaking amount of points. So be careful with comparing statistics in this game. Like the final scoring doesn't matter too much. Um, Going so fast also has another side effect. You might see how many discs are on Kansas City. This is normal in a competitive game. Kansas City is awesome because it lets you zap through the loop to hit only the best buildings and get coins from the only stop that you have to take each and every time, which is the delivery. Yeah, it's going to cost you 6 points, but trust me, and I know that at the beginning you won't trust me because it's counterintuitive, but going to Kansas City at least once at the start of the game and probably twice, it's the way to play this game. Uh, some players might find it disappointing. I don't think so. It doesn't restrict too much what you can do in a game. You still can do amazing stuff in a game. You can feel clever each and every time you take an action because you have to think through it a few times before taking it. But if there's something that now I keep for granted is delivering to Kansas City. The first loop and probably also the second one. This also means that sometimes in competitive games you see players starting at the end of the loop just to go straight up to Kansas City and go for a double higher, because that's also what makes going to Kansas City that important. It's not only that it helps you with having faster loops at the start of the game, it also helps you getting 2 workers out of one action. So it's going to save you one action overall, which is going to be worth more than 6 points by the end of the game. So trust me, the way to play Great Western Trail is at least at the start of the game, trying to go for Kansas City and saving some coins to go for a double hire. Double hiring is an incredibly good action. It saves you a lot of stops, and action economy is way more important than the other kind of economy you can get in this game. So you have very limited actions in this game. I think about 22 or 24 in the whole game, and saving one is really important. So going for a double hire is the way to go. And Kansas City helps with that. Also, another thing that makes Kansas City so good is that it lowers the variance. Like, let's take a look at my hand now. I have a value of 5 cows, which is average. If I won't go to Kansas City on my first delivery, that means that I can get 5 coins. Another player might go there for 7, and another player might go there for 3. So the guy that gets 7 coins is getting double the amount of the guy that goes there with 3, and that's fairly bad. While going to Kansas City lowers that differential, the 7 coin guy will get 13, and the 3 coins one will get 9. So the difference is still 4 coins, but it's not the double anymore. And that's very important. So go to Kansas City, do that often. Try it out against your friends. If you don't believe me, go for Kansas City and double higher, and you're going to win pretty often. Then there are going to be three main strategies in the game. You can hybridize them, and you're going to do them often enough, but most of the time, specializing is what you're going to end up with in a game. Like right now, I am full builder. That's a plan that is really strong, and now that people know about it, it's fairly hard to go full builder. I was able to do that this game. It's not always that common. So the three main strategies are like full cowboys, full engineers, and full builders. I think I'm going to make a video about each of these strategies just because they are so deep that they won't fit in like a reasonable video. I plan to have this video last 20 minutes. Let's see if I will be able to do that. So I will make a video about each and every strategy. But basically, cowboys just focus on getting cows and they get the most help out of, well, some taxers, of course, but some buildings, maybe mainly 2A, which is an extra cow market, which is incredibly good for cowboys because it's going to help them a lot with an ideal loop. And it lets them discard a white cow for 4 coins, which is also, of course, amazingly good rate. There's also another building that it's not in the game. It's the other side of 4A. It's 4B, and it's a building that basically says draw cards and discard them based on how many cowboys you have. So if you have 5 cowboys, you're going to draw 5 cards and discard 5 of them. That's, of course, incredibly good because if you're going for cowboys, you're going to have decent cows in your deck, and that building alone is going to make your loops way better, and it's going to make you get a lot of points out of deliveries, which is pretty good. Um, Also, giving three steps means that that's not an action. It's an action tackled on something else. You can go straight up to Kansas City if so you want, or you can go to another building in the same action. And again, action economy is king in this game. So those two buildings are just the best for Cowboys. That's all I'm going to say. Their ideal loop would be just to stop for cows. Well, early on, stop for heads, stop for cows, and deliver. Rinse and repeat. So this building makes their loop easier because they can stop here, then deliver. Depending on how the buildings are down, that's going to change quite a bit. Engineers, they can be played in two main ways. They can be played as station masters, so they are going to get these tiles, get decent deliveries, and get heaps of points from other stuff like getting TPs, getting certificates, getting hazards. So that's what they can be played like. Probably they're going to reach this station and no further, but they're going to fulfill maybe 3 different station master tiles and be happy with it. The other way to play them, which is more common, I would say, is trying to reach the end of the track. The last move is incredibly good. It's going to give you, I think, about like 14 points, which is incredibly good in this game. The last step gives you 9 points for 0 coins, which is something that is very, very, very hard to get and will teleport you back to another station. So this last move is incredibly good. Engineers normally try to rush the track to reach it and time it so that it's going to be the last action of the game or the second to last action of their game. So timing is a bit tricky. They're also king of auxiliary auctions because by stopping by many stations, they are going to unlock a lot of these discs so they can, twist their strategy, making all these actions very worth it. And lastly, there are builders, which are the most difficult ones to play, but also the most rewarding and probably the strongest in a vacuum, even though each and every game is going to be different. Builders aim at, disrupting the opponent's ideal loop by building not only taxers, because that's something that everybody does, but also other buildings, and they are going to use all the free steps one to make their loop very good. Their final plan most of the time is going for the big building. the 10 building. It can be 10B, which is in this game, which gives you steps on the rails, coins, and a free action basically. So that's already incredibly good. And the other side is probably even better. The other side gives you 5 free steps and is going to max your certificates. So you're going to get very good deliveries all the time. And going for good combos like I'm showing here is also amazingly good. Take a look at my loop right now. When it's going to be my turn, I already have the extra movement unlocked. I'm going to reach this spot, and this building lets me copy another building, and I'm going to copy this one. Then I'm going to take the free steps to this one, take that action, take the free steps from that one and chain to this one, and I'm already at the end of the loop, and I took an incredible amount of coins, a lot of steps on the rails, and hazards, and whatever I want, basically. And that's of course incredibly good, and this is what a late game good builder plan looks like. It's pretty rare to be able to do that nowadays, but when you can pull it off, it's pretty impressive. So what's important for builders? Coins. They are coin hungry, especially early on. And some buildings are better than others. Like 4A is a bit better than 4B because Cowboys are going to be too good with 4B most of the time. This building is not very good for them. And 3B, which is the other side of what's available in this game, I think. Let's take a look at what's available. Yeah, 3B is the other side of this one. It's better for builders just because it costs 2 builders. But again, I'm going to talk about single strategies more later on. As of now, just remember that each of those strategies want to take their namesake action each and every time they go through the loop, pretty much. So that's the main plan. Lastly, again, I don't know how long this video is already right now, but lastly, I'd like to give you some tips that might help you being better at the game overall. The first one is unlock the coin action as your first unlock. I see people going for many other things, but most of the time unlocking the action is a good choice. Every single strategy might need more coins, and this is just the safest bet. This is not the safest bet. This one is. So unlock the early coin. Sometimes you can unlock other action depending on your plan, but if you're a beginner, I would say go for the coin each and every time. And the same can be said for your first unlock. You should always unlock, like your first black disc will probably be dropped off on Albuquerque, normally around the third or maybe the fourth loop. And on Albuquerque, you always want to increase your movement. Like, don't be tricked into unlocking an extra hand. This is good only for cowboys and only it's pretty uncommon even for cowboys, I would say, because the game is pretty fast. So unlock this one first, because the other players are going to build a lot of buildings. Like here, to take my action, I have to jump through all of those spots. And if I didn't have the extra movement, I would be forced to take a very bad action, like a suboptimal action, while I want to take only the good ones. So this should be your first priority, each and every game. Like, each and every game. There are some niche plans that require you not to unlock this one, but I don't think it's good if you're a beginner to think about that. Unlock this action and be happy with it. Another good thing I should tell you is if you're going for cows and cowboys, take a look frequently at your deck and try to time your when you go to the cow market. You should go to the cow market right before forcing a shuffle. Like, it's really good when you're able to buy new cows and get them in your deck immediately. While you want to avoid the opposite thing, which is to force a reshuffle before buying cows, because it's going to be a long time before you're going to be able to draw into them. So timing is really important when going for cows. And that's something that I see people not putting as much as effort as they should, I think. Building positioning is also very good. There are some spots that are going to be regardless. This spot and this spot, they are both very good at the beginning because they normally help you already move towards the second part of the track while making a good action for you regardless of what the other guys are doing. So those two buildings those two spots are probably the best in a vacuum. They are the best spots to place your taxer most of the time. I mean, again, there are a lot of nuances, but I want to be beginner friendly, so keep in mind that those two spots are probably the best early on. And finally, one last thing. I see many people, many times, blaming luck because they lost the game. And all the time I see them stopping before delivering to go for a Hail Mary, like stop here and draw and discard, just hoping to get a good hand to deliver to Albuquerque or El Paso. So this is not a good action most of the time. Again, there are going to be some corner cases in which it's going to be good to stop and draw and discard, but most of the time it's not, especially if you're not doing anything. Like I see people stopping here with no engineer and with their engine at the beginning or their loop of their rails just to draw and discard and move and take one step, which is incredibly bad already starting from the second loop, I would say. So don't waste action just trying to get a better deliveries. It's not worth it. You won't get many points out of deliveries. You can get some, of course, but early on, if you're in doubt, just go to Kansas City. And later on, it's not that bad, even if you're a cowboy player, and even if it feels bad, it's not actually that bad to go to Santa Fe instead of El Paso and get an objective card. You're still going to get a few points out of it, and stopping it's going to cost you more. Wasting an action, it's worth, I think, more than 6 points on average by the end of the game. So you shouldn't stop trying to go to a very good stop unless the point gap is wider than at least 6 points. I mean, if the point gap is something like 10 points, because I saw one game recently when one guy was forced to go to Wichita, which is minus 4 points, instead of going to El Paso, which is 6, then the point gap is probably 10 points if you can get a useful objective card. So at that point, it might make sense to stop here, but I would say that the best thing is to avoid being forced to go to Wichita in the first place. So don't stop too much. Don't stop just hoping to get a better delivery. If you fail, that's going to be incredibly bad. And even if you succeed, you wasted one action. So it's not going to be as good as you might think it will. So that's it. These are my last few tips. I hope you're going to enjoy the video. If you have any question, just ask them below here, or just text me. I'm available on BGA, I'm available on Twitch, I'm available on BGG. So if you want, also leave a follow on my YouTube page if you're interested in my content, and blah blah blah, all the stuff that I should say. See you next time.